Hello everyone, welcome to Computer Science 190. Today we have a lab. And today we're solving this problem. Write a program that reads integers between 1 and 100 and counts the occurrences of each. Assumes that the input ends with 0. Okay, so here's an example. So asking a user enter the integers between 1 and 100. He types in 2, 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, blah, blah, blah. And then we're basically saying 2 occurs how many times? Twice. 2 times, 1, 2. And then 3 occurs one time. Now 5 occurs 1, 2. 6 occurs only once. 23 occurs once. 43 occurs once. Notice that they do not actually have anything for 1, for example. And yeah, for 1, technically there should be like 1 occurs one time, right? But they're skipping it, so they don't have it here. Okay, one of the important things to remember. Okay, so that's what we're gonna solve today. I'm gonna maybe solve it maybe to 80–90% of it, and then I want you to do your part as well. Okay, so let's see. Again, in my opinion, the best way to solve problems is to break them down into pieces. Solve one piece, one step at a time, and then run the code and see if it works or not. Okay, so what will be the first block? The first block would be, I don't know, ask a user to input numbers. Okay, and read the input. Okay, cool. So after that, second step would be, okay, so we know we already can. We're asking the user. He inputs something. We read in the input, so we know when to stop, right? We know that the 0, when we stop when the first 0 is there. Okay. What would be next step? Oh, okay, so how we're going to solve it, right? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we're going to solve it. In this section of Computer Science 190 class, we're talking about arrays, right? And we're going to solve this problem with arrays as well. How's that going to work? We're going to create an array. Okay, so that's our array. We're going to create an array of how many integers? 100. Okay, so this many integers, 100. Okay, then so there'll be like 100 integers. Okay, and then for each integer is going to represent the number of occurrences of that particular number. Okay, okay. So for example, this guy is the array of 0. This is the array of 1. That's an array of 2, and that's an array of 99. Right? And then the number here, array of 0, will represent how many times the 0 occurs in this list. So for example, not 0, hold on, between 1 and 100. Okay, so I plus 1, not I, but I plus 1. So 0 would represent, or we can skip it completely. Okay, yeah. So let's say that 0 will, so number at the index of 0 will represent how many times 1 occurs. Number in this box will represent how many times 2 occurs. So like this, the position of that number plus 1. So the number over here in this box will represent how many times 3 occurs, which is 2 plus 1. Okay, now if I have something like over here, and let's say the position of that box is 50, and then the number over here, let's say it's 21, okay, will represent that 51 occurs 21 times. Hope it makes sense. So the reason why we're shifting that by 1 is because we cannot have 0. We're not allowed to have 0. 0 means we end in the sequence, and we need to have 100 as well. So in this case, we don't have 100. We have only 99. So that's one of the possible solutions. Another solution may be to create an array of 101 numbers. Okay, then you will not have to shift anything, but I'm going to shift it. That's my way of doing that. Yeah, so we're going to create an array like this, and then as we read in the sequence, we're going to increment the counters. Yeah, by the way, in computer science, there's a technical term which is called a counter. So it's not like a countertop like in your house, in your apartment, like or over the counter. Counter means something which counts, right? Variable which counts something. Okay, so it usually starts counting from zero, okay, and then being incremented by 1. Okay, so in other words, we're going to create an array of counters. All of them by default at the very beginning will be zeros, all of those 100 numbers. Okay, and then every time we read a number, we'll be going to that index of the array. Okay, so for example, when we're reading 2, we're going to go to what would that be? 2 minus 1 over here, and then we're going to increment this number to 1, right? Okay, then we're reading 5. When we're reading 5, we're going to the index number 4. Okay, 5 minus 1, and we're going to increment that number as well. That's the idea. Okay, so this array is going to be an array of counters. Yeah, hope it makes sense. So second task would be create an array of counters. Okay, so that would be pretty simple. How many? 100, right? From 1 to 100. Then 3 fill, I guess, increment, make the counters increment as array is being read. I guess print out the result, right? Yeah, something like this. Okay, cool. Looks good. Okay, yeah, so let's do the first part. The first thing, we need to ask the user. Okay, so the user, we need to say this particular line, enter the integers between 1 and 100, okay, and then we need to have to read the input and read the input. Okay, so also like, we need to read the input as well here, which means we need to create a scanner import java.util.scanner. Okay, so scanner, I don't know, input is equal to new scanner system.in. Yeah. Okay, and then we're going to read the input. Okay, so how long do we read the input? We read the input, we read all the numbers one by one until we encounter 0, right? So we don't really know how many numbers the user has in mind. Maybe he wants to type in like this many numbers. Maybe he wants to type in million of numbers. Maybe he wants to type in only 3 numbers. We don't really know that, right? So that is why, since we don't really know that, there should be like, that sounds like a loop, right? So there is a, we repeat the action, but we don't really know how many times we repeat that, right? So in that case, when we don't really know how many times we repeat that, that's a perfect case when we use the while loop. So we're going to use the while loop. Okay, we're basically going to say while. Let's scan the first number. Okay, so int scanned int is equal to input dot next int. Okay, and while that number, the number we just scanned, is not equal to 0. Okay. Yeah, while it's not equal to 0, what we're going to do, we're going to increment the counter. Okay. Yeah, so like, yeah, so while scanned int is not equal to 0, for the first task, for the first part, we're just going to keep reading the numbers, which means that we're going to keep reading the numbers. How do we do that? We'll basically update the scanned int. Let's say in scanned int, input that next int. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So we asked the user to input the numbers and we read the input. Okay. We did not put them into any array yet because that's the second step. Okay, but that's the first step. Now, again, the most important thing now, and the reason why I'm splitting that into these tasks, is that when I hit run, if I have any errors, I will actually fix them right now. Versus if I try to solve the entire problem and then maybe I'll actually have like, let's say 200 lines of code and then I'll have an issue, it will be very difficult to locate it. But as of now, I have how many lines? Sounds like 12 or 11. Well, probably like this, right? So even without the comment. So that's 8 lines of code, right? It'll be very easy to locate the mistake because there are only eight lines of code. There are only 8, like I guess, possibilities to make a mistake. Okay, I'm gonna run it. Let's see what happens. Let's say, I don't know, 50. Okay, it's waiting for me. Now 20, 1, 34, 800, 0. Okay, yeah, so you see when we input 0, when I typed in 0, it actually stopped. Why it stopped? Because the scanned int was read and it became 0, and after that, that while loop terminated, right? Because scanned int became 0. Okay, so that's the first step. The first step is over. Now the second step is to create an array. Okay, so we can create an array right here, actually. How do we create an array of 100 numbers, right? We just need to say int, I don't know, array, any name, username, is equal to new int, and 100. Okay, let's run it. Nothing should change, I guess. Am I correct? I don't know, let's say 49, 0. Perfect. Okay. Okay, what else? What else? Yeah, that sounds like it. Number 3, make the counters increment as an array as the array is being read. So basically over here, not only do we need to read the input, but we also need to increment the counters. So we need to increment these numbers as we read them. So let's see. The way it would work is this. Again, let's say the user typed in, hold on. Let's say the user typed in something like 10, right? So that means we need to increment one of the counters, okay, in our array. Which counter we're going to increment? It's going to be 10 minus 1, right? So 0 represents, like this number represents how many 1s I have. This number represents how many 2s I have. That means 9th number is going to represent how many 10s I have. Okay, so we need to just decrement the position of the counter will be the number the user typed in minus 1. Okay, which means that we need to say array, okay, of scanned int minus 1 plus plus. Okay, that operates under an assumption, and it's very important to understand, that operates under an assumption that when you create an array of 100 integers, all of those 100 integers become 0. It really depends on the compiler. It really depends on the Java version. I think that this particular online compiler works the way it works, and the way usually Eclipse works, at least I've never seen anything different from that. That whenever we create an array of integers, it creates an array of zeros. Okay. So that's why it starts from zeros. In other programming languages, it may work differently. That's why technically, for example, in JavaScript, well, I'm not sure about the JavaScript or Python. Yeah, if you do it, for example, in C, well, no, it will probably work the same way. I don't know, yeah. But a lot safer, what would be a lot safer to do is to actually specifically, explicitly set all of those 100 integers to zeros. That's how you would do that. You would use a for loop. You would say, it's always, right? You would say array.length I plus plus, and then you would say array of I is equal to 0, right? you would probably delete that because it's only one line of code, and sometimes you would delete that as well. That's actually like how real coders, how the software developers are programming. They like doing this. Since there is only one line of code, like they would actually just typed everything in one line. But don't do that at this class. We'll get to like very cool software coding techniques like later, if you're computer science major, of course. Okay, anyway, moving on. So we did this, we incremented them. Now let's run it. Let's see if we have any syntax errors or anything like that. 89, 0. Aha, exception. Okay, that's the reason why we actually do that. That's the reason. So exception thread, array index out of bounds, exception, -1. Okay, so we somehow went out of bounds, and I think I know why. Because when I typed in 0, it actually did this. Yeah. So we need to do it first. Yeah. 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 Cool. Okay, that works. That works better. Yeah. So. Okay, make the country's increment has already been read. Print out the results. Okay, cool. Print out the results. Yeah, so now what we have, supposedly, right, we do not know for sure yet, but supposedly we have this array, and the numbers have been incremented to the number of occurrences. Okay, so now let's print this out. Since we know the size of the array, we only have 100 elements in this array. In order to print it out, we can use a for loop. Okay. So we're going to use this for loop, okay, and then we're going to print out something like this: to occurs twice, okay. Okay. Copy pasting. Okay. Now it's not 2, of course. It's I. Right? How many times I occurs? So I occurs. Now how many times again? So we have the number and we have the index. So index represents the number, and the number, the position of that index represents the number of times that number occurred. Okay. So I occurs. How many times? How many times? Array of I times. Okay. Yeah. Now I want to print out maybe a separate separator. Have a separate line like this, such that I will visually see what's going on in the output. So let's see. Okay, let's say, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and let's do 1 again. Okay, and then 0. Boom. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Okay, so 0 occurs twice. Okay, 0 occurs twice. That's interesting. Why would 0? That's actually 1, right? Yeah, okay. So that's a mistake. You see, that's a mistake. So 0, I did not do the shifting yet. I did not do the shifting in this line. So you see, what occurs twice? 1 occurs twice, right? 1 occurs twice. How many times 1? Yeah, so how many times 0 occurs? 0, right? So we should not actually print out 0 occurs at all, right? Because it's not in our input. The input is between 1 and 100. 0 is not in the input. 0 means the end of the list. Now, how many times 1 occurs? It's not 1, but 2, right? So that's 1, 2. How many times 2 occurs? It's not, well, it's 1. Yeah, it happens to be 1. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do 1, 1. 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3. Yeah, and 0. Okay, so of course all of those guys are zeros, right? Because they do not occur at all. Now here we have a shifting problem, right? Shifting mistake. So 0 occurs how many times? Like no times. There are no zeros at all. We should not print out this line. Now 1 occurs how many times? Not twice, but 3 times, right? Now how many times 2 occurs? Not 4 times, but 2 times, twice. How many times 3 occurs? Not 0, but 4 times, right? Okay, and then all of them are zeros, and then yeah, and then 100. Okay, it's possible that we have 100, right? Let's try to type in 100. Boom. Okay, so we don't have any occurrences of any other numbers apart from 100, but here for some reason it says 99. Okay, yeah, cool. So I'm gonna stop here, and here's what I want you to do. I want you to solve two problems. I want you to kind of finish this exercise. So I want you to do this. Here's what I want you to do. I want you first off fix this issue, right? Fix the issue with printout. Okay, so the code works correctly. The code would, as a kind of disclaimer hint, the code works correctly, but there is a problem in the way we printing those numbers out, and that problem is somewhere in this line. That's my hint. Okay, and number two, what I want you to do, I want you to avoid all of those 0 times, right? Because you see in the original assignment we did not have any printouts for the numbers which occur 0 times, which did not occur at all, right? As of now, we have this, right? So I want you to avoid these printouts when there are 0 times. How do you do that? Okay, so avoid printing out numbers which occur 0 times. Okay, how do you do that? You have to do something over here as well, like somewhere over here. And number 3 is I want you to pay attention, close attention to the way they print stuff out. So they say 2 occurs 2 times, 3 occurs 1 time, right? So if it's 1, then it's time. If it's more than 1, it's times. Okay, it's plural. Okay, and that's what I want you to copy as well. As of now, you see I have time times always. So even if something occurs only once, it's going to say 1 times, although it should say 1 time. And that's what I want you to fix. Print out time for 1 and times for a number greater than 1. Okay. Cool, yeah, perfect. So I want you to take this code, I want you to fix these mistakes, and that should conclude this exercise. I want you to format it correctly, have the comments, have the header comment, and I want you to submit it to the lab page on the Blackboard. I hope you guys doing well. I'll see you on Tuesday. Bye-bye.